Brace yourself for an eye-opening journey that might change everything you believe. Have you ever paused to consider how the ancient story of Sodom and Gomorrah's destruction could reshape your perspective on life today? In a world filled with mysteries, we're about to unravel profound secrets that will challenge the way you see the world. This is no ordinary story. It's a thrilling ride packed with controversy, bold revelations, and fascinating truths. Trust me, you won't want to miss a single moment of what's ahead. So, dive in with an open heart and an open mind, ready to discover something extraordinary. The narrative begins with Abraham, calmly seated at the entrance of his tent under the scorching midday sun. Suddenly, he notices three strangers approaching in the distance. Without hesitation, he runs to meet them. Bowing deeply, he greets them with utmost respect. "My friends," he says, "if you honor me with your visit, please don't pass by without allowing me to show you a bit of hospitality. Let me bring some water for you to wash your feet and rest beneath the shade of these trees. I'll also bring you some bread to refresh yourselves before you continue your journey, since you've been kind enough to stop here." The travelers graciously accept his offer. Abraham, eager to serve, springs into action. He quickly instructs his servants and then rushes into the tent to ask his wife, Sarah, to prepare 3 fine portions of their best flour. Abraham himself kneads the dough and shapes the bread with practiced hands. Not stopping there, he hurries to his herd, selects a healthy young calf, and hands it over to his servant for preparation. Once everything is ready, he serves his guests a generous meal of fresh curds, milk, and roasted meat, all under the welcoming shade of a tree. Standing by attentively, Abraham watches as the visitors eat. Their attention eventually turns to Sarah. When asked about her, Abraham replies that she is in the tent. Then, one of the visitors makes an astonishing declaration. "I will return around this time next year, and Sarah, your wife, will have a son." Listening quietly from the tent doorway, Sarah can't help but laugh to herself. She and Abraham are both far advanced in years, and Sarah has long passed the age of childbearing. Amused and incredulous, Sarah wonders, "Can I really experience the joy of motherhood now that I'm old and my husband is just as old?" The Lord, perceiving her thoughts, asks Abraham, "Why did Sarah laugh and doubt my words? Is anything too extraordinary for the Lord to accomplish? When I return next year, Sarah will have a son." Caught off guard, Sarah denies laughing, but the Lord firmly responds, "No, you did laugh." After this exchange, the men rise and turn their gaze towards Sodom, with Abraham walking alongside to see them off. The Lord begins to deliberate. Should I hide from Abraham what I am about to do? After all, Abraham is destined to become the patriarch of a great and powerful nation, and through him, all nations will be blessed. God reasons that Abraham must guide his family and descendants in the ways of justice and righteousness, so that the promises made to him will be fulfilled. So the Lord reveals his plan. The outcry against Sodom and Gomorrah is immense, and their sin is grievous. I will go down to see if their actions are as bad as the outcry that has reached me. If not, I will know. As the 2 men depart for Sodom, Abraham remains before the Lord. He steps forward and asks, "Lord, will you really sweep away the righteous along with the wicked? What if there are 50 righteous people in the city? Will you spare it for their sake? Surely the judge of all the earth will act justly." The Lord agrees, saying, "If I find 50 righteous people in Sodom, I will spare the entire city for their sake." But Abraham, humbly pressing on, asks, "What if there are 5 fewer than 50 righteous? Will you destroy the city over those 5? The Lord replies, "If I find 45, I will not destroy it." Encouraged, Abraham continues, "What if there are only 40? And the Lord answers, "For the sake of 40, I will not destroy it." Abraham persists, respectfully bargaining down the numbers, 30, then 20, and finally 10. Each time, the Lord assures him, "For the sake of 10, I will not destroy the city." After this heartfelt intercession, the Lord departs and Abraham returns home. This profound dialogue reveals Abraham's compassion and his unwavering trust in God's justice and mercy. The essence of the story lies in the question of divine justice. As events unfold, it becomes evident that God possesses the power to do all things, but will he act justly? Abraham's bold yet humble pleas shed light on this central question. God's transparency in sharing his plans with Abraham served two purposes. First, to emphasize Abraham's role as a blessing to all nations, and second, to establish Abraham's responsibility to teach his descendants about righteousness. The severity of Sodom's depravity demanded judgment, but Abraham believed there were still righteous people in the city. His prayers reveal his noble character, a man who interceded not only for the righteous but also for the wicked, in the hope that they might be spared for the sake of the righteous among them. Abraham's determination, his humility, and his compassion stand out as hallmarks of his faith. Lot's actions, in contrast, provide a sobering reflection of human frailty. While Lot hesitated and sought compromise, Abraham's intercession was marked by persistence and reverence. This contrast highlights the tension between justice and mercy, a theme woven throughout the narrative. When two angels arrived in Sodom at dusk, they found Lot seated at the city gate, a position of prominence. Lot greeted them warmly and insisted they stay at his home for the night. Initially, the angels declined, preferring to spend the night in the city square, but Lot pressed them until they agreed. That night, Sodom's depravity came into full view. Men from every corner of the city surrounded Lot's house, demanding he hand over his guests for their own vile purposes. Lot stepped outside to plead with them, offering his 2 virgin daughters in place of his guests, an act that underscores the cultural importance of hospitality, but also reveals Lot's deeply compromised morals. The angels intervened, pulling Lot back into the house and striking the mob with blindness. They then urged Lot to gather his family and flee, as the city was about to face divine judgment. Yet, even with this warning, Lot hesitated. Out of mercy, the angels physically took hold of Lot, his wife, and their 2 daughters, leading them out of the city. As they escaped, the angels gave a clear command: "Flee for your lives. Don't look back or stop anywhere in the valley. Escape to the mountains, where you will be swept away." Lot, however, pleaded to be allowed to flee to a small nearby town instead. His request was granted, and the town, named Zoar, was spared. But as Lot's family fled, his wife disobeyed the command and looked back. In doing so, she was turned into a pillar of salt, a stark reminder of the cost of clinging to a corrupt world. The next morning, Abraham looked out toward Sodom and Gomorrah and saw thick smoke rising like a furnace from the devastated land. God had kept his promise to spare Lot, but his judgment on the cities was final and absolute. The destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah stands as a vivid symbol of divine judgment against corruption, but it also reminds us of God's mercy toward the righteous. Although Lot and his daughters escaped with their lives, their story did not end in triumph. Overcome by fear and uncertainty, Lot left Zoar, a city he had pleaded to flee to, and instead sought refuge in the isolation of the mountains, where he and his daughters lived in a cave. Here, we witness a darker turn in the narrative. Lot's daughters, believing they were the last survivors on earth and that their family line would perish, devised a desperate and morally troubling plan. The elder daughter said to the younger, "Our father is old, and there is no man left on earth to come to us in the customary way. Let us make our father drink wine, and then lie with him, so we can preserve our family through him." That night, they carried out their plan. They gave Lot wine to drink until he was intoxicated and unaware of his surroundings. The elder daughter then lay with him, and due to his drunken state, Lot did not realize what had occurred. The next day, the elder daughter shared what she had done with her younger sister and suggested they repeat the act. The following night, they again made Lot drink to the point of oblivion, and this time the younger daughter lay with him. Lot remained unaware of what had transpired, just as before. From these acts of incest, both daughters conceived. The elder daughter gave birth to a son and named him Moab, which means from the father. He would become the forefather of the Moabite nation. The younger daughter also bore a son, naming him Ben-Ami, meaning son of my kin, the ancestor of the Ammonites. This disturbing account highlights the lingering effects of Sodom's corrupt environment on Lot's family. While Lot had physically escaped the city, the moral degradation of Sodom continued to influence his daughter's actions. Their decision to commit incest, though made out of desperation and fear, reflects the twisted values they absorbed from living in such a depraved society. The resulting nations, Moabites, and Ammonites, would later become perpetual adversaries of Israel. The names of their forefathers, Moab and Ben-Ami, carried the shameful memory of their origins, serving as a reminder to Israel of the consequences of living too closely with a wicked world. The story of Lot's daughters illustrates how the corruption of a sinful society can linger even after its destruction, shaping the lives and decisions of those who were part of it. Lot's story as a whole is a sobering tale of compromise, hesitation, and the long-lasting consequences of living on the edges of righteousness. While he is described in the New Testament, 2 Peter 2 verse 7 to 8, as a righteous man who was tormented by the wickedness around him, his decisions reveal the challenges of living in close proximity to sin. Though he sought to protect his guests and uphold hospitality, his willingness to offer his daughters to the mob reveals the moral conflict within him. Lot's choice to live in Sodom was driven by the allure of prosperity and comfort, but it came at great cost to his family and his moral clarity. Genesis 13 verse 10 to 11 recounts how Lot chose the lush and fertile plains of the Jordan Valley, which reminded him of Egypt, over the simpler and more righteous life in the hills. His gradual integration into Sodom's society, seen in his role as a city elder at the gate, underscores how easy it is to be entangled by the world's corrupt values. The arrival of the heavenly visitors marked a pivotal moment in Lot's life. Their presence revealed the full depravity of Sodom's people, as well as Lot's own internal struggle to balance his faith with his compromised circumstances. His attempt to reason with the violent mob and his willingness to sacrifice his daughters reflect the conflict between his principles and his fear. Lot's hesitation to leave Sodom, even after being warned by the angels, further underscores his attachment to the city. It was only by God's mercy and Abraham's intercession that Lot was forcibly removed from the doomed city. Even then, his wife's lingering attachment to Sodom led to her disobedience and death. The image of her transformation into a pillar of salt stands as a haunting reminder of the danger of looking back toward a sinful past. The destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah is not merely a story of divine wrath, but also a cautionary tale about the consequences of compromise and the importance of fully trusting in God's deliverance. Lot escaped with his life, but his heart remained conflicted. As seen in his request to flee to Zoar and his eventual retreat to the mountains, his daughters, shaped by the values of Sodom, committed acts that perpetuated the moral corruption they had sought to escape. This narrative warns against the dangers of trying to live in two worlds, seeking the benefits of a sinful society while attempting to maintain faith. Lot's story demonstrates that such a balance is unsustainable. Sodom was destroyed not only because of its wickedness, but also as a warning to future generations about the judgment awaiting those who embrace sin. Four key themes emerge from this account: God's swift and decisive judgment on wickedness, the danger of becoming too attached to ungodly influences, God's mercy in delivering the righteous, and the consequences of failing to fully separate from a corrupt world. For the Israelites hearing this story, it served as both a warning and a reminder of God's justice and mercy. Lot's life offers a mirror for self-reflection. His attachment to Sodom, his reluctance to leave, and his daughter's subsequent actions all challenge us to examine our own compromises. Are we clinging to things that pull us away from righteousness? Are we hesitant to follow God's call fully? The story also speaks to the folly of being enchanted by the temporary pleasures and promises of a sinful world. 1 John 2 verse 17 reminds us that the world and its desires pass away, but whoever does the will of God lives forever. Lot's attachment to Sodom cost him nearly everything, while his wife's inability to let go led to her destruction. Jesus himself reflected on this narrative, warning his disciples to remember Lot's wife, Luke 17 verse 32. He cautioned that those who try to save their lives in this world will lose them, while those willing to surrender their lives for God's sake will find eternal life. Luke 17 verse 33. This teaching underscores the urgency of placing our faith in God, rather than clinging to the fleeting comforts of this life. The story of Sodom and Gomorrah remains one of the Bible's most powerful reminders of God's judgment and mercy. It challenges us to live with integrity, avoid compromise, and trust fully in God's deliverance. If this narrative has stirred your thoughts, don't stop here. Explore more, reflect deeply, and share your insights. Let's continue to grow together in understanding. See you in the next video.